Brothers and sisters, Mrs. and Misters, the Dented Cast is back on your computer screen. Welcome. We're glad you're here. My name is Dobie Maxwell. This gentleman here is Max Baumgardner. We are the Dented Cast, and it's a thrill to be back. We record these. Today we're doing it in real time.
Yeah, basically. We usually record once a month, 4 or 5 episodes. And
in our secret underground bunker where no one knows where it is.
That's right. The
secret password underground in a nuclear divide.
What happened was, the day before we were supposed to tape last time, I got a text from Dobie that said, "Hey, buddy, I'm sorry, I can't make it. My brother passed away." And what do you say to that? Of course, I said, well, that's not an excuse.
Yeah, lazy bum.
No, I didn't. And so, boy, you've been through a lot, man.
As have you. And that's what Dented Cans, we get a scar and a callus in our life. And I think sometimes, I've known you a long time, you know me a long time, things like that happen. And I just called you, not looking for sympathy, not looking for anything, but that was a fact. That's what happened. My brother passed away, had been going through a long ordeal, and you deal with it.
Yeah. Well, a couple of days before that news, we exchanged emails to outline the topics that we're going to discuss. So we both kind of have a general idea. Dobie is a master at ad-lib, as you know, and off-the-cuff comments.
And Max is very regimented, so I do what I can to just totally pee in his pool. He's right on the money, and I want to make it real. I'm sorry, we drive each other. He's Felix, I'm Oscar.
Which works out.
Yeah.
Dobie shared with me, he said, I would like to talk about inspiration. So the letter I, inspiration. And I'd like to talk about my brother, Larry. This is prior to what happened. And I would like you, if you would, to talk about how you guys, I don't know if you called one another or texted. I don't think Larry was a texter, right? Because of his problem. I don't think he had a stroke, right?
He had a stroke, yeah. I don't even think he had a cell phone, to be honest with you. Larry is you have siblings. Everybody I talk to that has siblings, you fight with your siblings. You have going back. Larry and I, my brother, is 2 years older than me, never fought one time. I don't think we ever raised our voices at each other. It's just a perfect mesh of siblings that we just always got along. And I can't imagine fighting with him. And he was such an inspiration. And our father just beat the living snot out of him. And no one could understand why. He'd be like, let's take Mother Teresa, give her a few uppercuts because she just doesn't know what's going on. No one could understand. He was the most peaceful, gentle soul ever. And he told me, and I didn't even think about it, he said, you dealt with the pain from our situation by being funny. You wrote jokes about it. I got into martial arts. He needed the discipline. And he's the kind of guy that could reach down into your throat, bring up your heart, show it to you before you die. And he never bragged about that. I mean, he was like a whatever degree you were that he could do all that kind of stuff, he was. But he's told me, he said that you don't go out there and brag, hey, I'm a badass. He was very peaceful, and he did it just for a discipline kind of a thing. And he was so inspiring to me that whenever I would get angry, so, he drove a forklift. He goes, whenever I want to climb off that forklift and ball up my fist and club my boss, I think of my brother up there on that stage making people laugh, and that keeps me going. I said, well, when I'm in a cheap hotel room in some horrible town somewhere watching the bugs crawl across the ceiling, I picture my brother up there on that forklift, and that keeps me going. We were constant inspirations to us our entire lives. And he had a stroke about 5 years ago, and he was at his son's house. And they say if you find someone after a stroke, before 2 hours, they can do a lot to save you. He was about 24 hours, and part of him was dead. And his left side was paralyzed, and he was in a nursing home in a diaper, in a wheelchair. And you see such a vibrant physical specimen be resorted to that for 5 years and never one time complained. Never one time complained. That alone was an inspiration.
Right. Wow.
And I think we all, sometimes people, Tony Robbins, or we joke about Joel Osteen. He's very inspirational to people because I think sometimes people need a focus. A lot of times that's what religion is, an inspiration to people. Mm-hmm. And to have someone that close to know personally, to be that close of an inspiration, I was very lucky to have that.
Well, and then you talked about, it was a night or two before we were supposed to tape. So he died on a Friday, actually. Yes. Mm-hmm. But that Thursday night, you went there the night before. You went to his nursing home with a bunch of French fries. How did that happen?
Well, I took a comedy gig, and I'm not taking comedy gigs right now. It was at an old folks' home. That's not the bastion for comedy, believe it or not, especially after 2020. And there was a lady that was really sweet. She said, "We have this gig. It's earlier in the day. Would you like to do it?" And I said, normally I would say no, but my brother's nursing home was about 45 minutes away, which is about 2 hours from where I live. And that's a long drive. I don't care how much you love anybody. And he was up there for 5 years, so 2 hours up, 2 hours back, try to spend a couple hours with him. I don't care how much you love anybody. That's a long time to sacrifice.
Right.
So I said, I'll take the gig so I can go see my brother. Well, the show started late, and the people were really sweet, and I stayed later and shook hands, and they were wonderful people. I thought, boy, it's getting kind of late. Maybe he won't want to see me. So I called the nursing home. I said, I'm Larry's brother. I was going to come and see him today, but it's getting kind of late. She said, oh, he's been very lonely lately. If you could come up and see him, that would just be fantastic. His kids didn't see him. His ex-wife didn't see him. Pretty much very few of us went up to see him. My sister did, and a couple other people. That was it. I thought, okay, I'll be up. If you're going to let me in, we'll let you in no matter what time you get here. So I went up there, and he was sleeping. Well, what do? I drove all the way up there, wiggled his toes. He wakes up suddenly, and we start talking and laughing. And for whatever reason, talk about simple taste. He loved McDonald's Big Macs. We don't have any sponsor for our show. McDonald's, he ate McDonald's. He'd eat them every day if he could. He loved them. I said, you want any treat? He goes, well, some French fries, if it's not too much trouble. Oh, it's not too much trouble. You're sitting up here for 5 years and me going to get some French fries. I said, how about a Big Mac to go with it? Well, if you don't mind. So I got him a Big Mac, got him his fries. And this is a story I'd really like to tell. And just for posterity's sake, I hope you had a brother or somebody in your life like this. We walked through, I love Batman in high school. And my high school years was 10 years after the Batman TV show and 10 years before the Batman movie with Jack Nicholson. So to make a long story longer, I painted my car, bats on the doors, like I'm Batman. Everybody thought I'm nuts. My brother loved it. He defended me no matter what I would do. We walked through a huge flea market in the Milwaukee area. That's our hometown. And there was a guy that had a Batman T-shirt. It was vintage, and the guy wanted $10 for it back then. And I didn't have $10, but man, I looked at that thing and I said, okay, we can go now. We walked all the way through the flea market, and Larry said, I got to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And you know me, Max. I'm very impatient, and if it's not my way, patience is a virtue, one that I don't have, of many virtues that I don't have, but that's one of them. So 5 minutes became 10 minutes, became almost a half an hour, and I'm livid. I'm just ready to let's go already. And sure enough, Larry comes around, and he has that T-shirt, and he throws it at me and said, okay, now you got the T-shirt to match the Batmobile. And I cried that moment because it was so kind when he did it. And I reminded of it a few years ago. I reminded him of it when he was in the nursing home. And he didn't even remember doing it because kindness was so wired into his DNA that was part of him. And I know he didn't have $10 at the time either. He sacrificed what he had to give me that shirt, and I never forgot it. And I went to see him. He had his Big Mac. I just thought of that again. All these things were popping into my mind that I reminded of that. I said, I know that T-shirt. He goes, you still got it? And I said, yeah, I wear it to church every Sunday. And he teases me like you teased me about that, and we had a really big laugh about that.
Because he was a believer?
Yes.
And you are not.
I am not.
And that was one of those things after he's got a belly full of French fries, and you did not know in that moment that...
Well, so we have a great memory. We're just talking about stuff and just going off in every different direction. And I had I said, Larry, I love to stay with you, but I got to get going. I put my hand on his shoulder. I looked in his eye and I said, I want to tell you that I couldn't ask for a better brother. And all the shit we've been through on both sides of us, if it wasn't for you, I'd be dead. And I hope I helped you too. I just want to tell you that I love you. He looked at me and he said, I love you too. I drove home. That was the only time I really didn't cry. You guys get to see him like that. I always cried when I went to see him because it was so horrible. But I felt really good and fulfilled. And the next day, my sister called me. My sister never calls me. She texts me, and we talk live. She never calls. And I worked the next day, and she gave me, this is your sister. Give me a call, please. Just seemed funny. I called her. She said, I don't know how to tell you this, but got a call from the nursing home. And Larry died this afternoon. Oh, God. Max, it was just a smash to the face. And I don't know if it was God. I don't know if it was the universe. But for me to be able to see him on his last night on earth, to give him his favorite meal, to look him in his eye, tell him that I love him, it couldn't be a better brother. I hate to be greedy, but that was for me. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't for him. He couldn't give anymore. I mean, when he had a stroke, I wanted him to go to sleep and not wake up because he was in a bad situation. I'm not going to tell him that, but his quality of life was so horrible. And I'm thinking, boy, part of it was mercy, but there was something cosmic there that I would go see him. I wasn't going to go. It was late to call the place up. Yeah, I'll go do it, and that's going to be a pleasant memory for me for whatever life I have left. And and the reason we're telling that whole story is what can you do? Who can you see that inspires you? You have a great inspirational story of someone that you saw.
I do, and we're going to separate that into another episode.
Okay.
I just made that decision.
Okay.
Because this episode is an inspiration. And I'd like to say, you could tell that there is no filter on this at all. And what Dobie's testimony just was from the heart. There's no question. So if there's somebody in your life, maybe a grandparent, a parent, no matter what they did, we talk about forgiveness. That's a different episode. You can go back and look at that. But the bottom line is we all need each other. And in Larry's last night on earth, his brother did what he does so well and made him belly laugh and feel good. And he went to sleep. And happy.
Here's the thing too.
That's inspirational, right there.
I hope so. I talked to my sister about it,
yeah.
and I said I've been a comedian for 35 years. That will be, and always will be my very best show ever. To make him laugh on his last night on earth, such a kind soul who suffered so much. That's what life's about, man. Whether you get famous or not, please find someone that inspires you and tell them to their face, because that little tap on the shoulder, if I wouldn't have gone, I would feel so horrible right now. But I feel good, and hopefully I can share it with you, and you can make people feel good. That's why we're here, Max.
This is the Dented Cast. Thanks for joining us.